Hi, today I am joined with Sharon Morgan, and we're going to discuss navigating through an IRS notice. Good morning, Sharon. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Lee. I'm great. How are you?
Very good, very good. So I kind of want to start out before we get into the questions and kind of what we want to talk about today. Give the audience a little bit of background of who you are and why you focused your career. We're going to talk about the IRS and solving IRS tax problems. So I want to give our audience a little better understanding of who you are and why you do what you do.
All right. Well, my original background was marketing, and we used to place national TV spots on radio and TV. And we ended up, a couple of our largest clients were the tax resolution companies out of California. And we were doing those national radio and TV campaigns for pennies on the dollar, settle your taxes. Took me a couple of years to realize these were salespeople answering the calls and making promises that were not real, and basically ripping off the taxpayer that was having tax problems. So I decided to become a federally licensed enrolled agent and start my own company in the tax resolution industry.
So explain to me a little bit about it. For the consumer side, what exactly are these pennies on the dollar, institutions? What are these companies trying to do? Are they more sales factories and call centers, or are they actually trying to help people? What was kind of your experience? Obviously, you had an insight.
Yeah, most of them were just trying to get the money up front. They were salespeople. They had no idea how to resolve tax problems or even understand tax problems.
Okay, well, wow. So that's a good point to kind of red flag number one is be careful who you work with if you do receive an IRS notice. And that kind of goes into my next question here is, right now the IRS phone scams are grabbing headlines. I mean, everywhere you're seeing, different scams and how many people are affected. But how does the IRS notify you in case of an audit or some sort of collection action?
Well, the IRS 99.9% of the time is not ever going to call you. They're only going to call you if a revenue officer has been assigned to your case. Their first line of communication is mail, and then more mail, and then more mail, and then certified mail. So calling you is not generally something that's ever going to happen.
Okay, so what are the obvious signs that there's a scammer contacting you? Please elaborate a little bit on the ways they try to trick you.
This is a huge, huge problem right now. It is happening widespread. If you get called by someone claiming to be with the Internal Revenue Service and they threaten you that if you do not go put money in their random bank account right now, they are sending someone to arrest you, it is 100% a scam. You need to just hang up and block that number.
Okay. It would be common sense, you would think, but I know that a lot of people are tricked. So they obviously, the techniques they're using seem to work. So let's go to a real IRS notice. So what would be the first advice you would give a taxpayer who receives a government letter?
Well, I get clients all the time that hands me a stack of IRS notices that they've never even opened. So my best advice is open it and read it. If you can resolve it quickly and easily, which most of the time you can, they're just asking for additional information, do it. If it's something you can't handle on your own, then seek professional tax help on the best way to handle it.
Okay, so you're saying a lot of people are just, they get the letters and they sit in their inbox. So are you saying, respond quickly or in a certain period of time? Does the notice tell you how long you have to respond?
Yeah, the notice will give you a timeline. It's generally 30 days. And they'll almost always follow up with a second letter giving you 30 more days. But usually you should just open it and respond. A lot of times it's something you just mail right back to them. With
a lot of the notices then you're saying are computer generated or something like that?
Most always, the first few letters are just computer generated. There might be an underreporting of income. They might just be telling you they made an adjustment to your account.
Okay. Then what are some tips then if you actually, it does take it to another level? It's like, what are the main reasons in the IRS is starting this audit on you?
Well, the number one reasons that you're going to be on IRS's radar is underreporting of income, if you have foreign bank accounts, if you are self-employed and are claiming high business deductions, and anyone earning over $200,000 a year is more likely.
Okay. So what are some tips then in preparing for an IRS audit, tax audit from, what would be your best tips for people?
Be prepared with your records, your supporting documents to be able to claim whatever exemptions and deductions you claimed. That's most important. If you can't justify those exemptions and deductions, then you might end up owing some additional tax.
Okay. So what would be an action? Let's say that you do respond, or they automatically, or when do they put a bank levy on? So there's a lot of news about bank levies, and I wanted to get an idea of, one, how do they do a bank levy? And then two, how do you get a bank levy lifted?
Well, one, bank levy takes a long time. That means you have ignored all of their previous notices, basically, and they will generally send you a certified letter at that point, letting you know that you're in jeopardy of a bank levy. If you don't contact the IRS at that point and enter into some sort of arrangement with them, like an installment agreement or currently not collectible status, or provide them a financial statement that they're requesting, they will just have your bank seize whatever funds are in the account. But the bank has to hold that money for 21 days before it hands it over to the IRS. So during that 21 days, you once again have another chance to enter into an installment agreement or work out some sort of resolution with the IRS to have those funds released back to your bank account.
So basically, then there's a bunch of different ways that you can negotiate with the IRS, is what you're saying. So to get an actual bank levy on you means you haven't really been communicating with the IRS at all. I mean, so you're saying that
in the sand and ignored them and not given them the information they're requesting. So then they give you a nice little wake-up call by seizing your bank accounts. or contacting your employer and putting a wage garnishment on your pay.
All right, which, yeah, I mean, it gets even embarrassing and even worse. Okay,
it's
so
horrible, yeah, but that.
Okay, I hear you. So I do have a question, kind of going a little off track. Is there a statute of limitations on trying to collect back taxes?
Yes, there is a statute of 10 years, and that is 10 years from the date the tax was officially assessed, not from when you filed your tax return or when your tax return might have been due. It's when the tax was assessed to your account.
So I guess you could wait about 10 years, is what you're saying. So an offer and compromise, instead of negotiating, if you put your head in the sand, 10 years later, if they seize everything, you could theoretically wait them out.
You could write out the statute clock, but that's hard to do. The IRS does not want you to do that, so they ramp up their aggressive collection tactics way before the statute clock runs out.
Yeah, no, I was half joking. So I do have a question here about, okay, I mean, it's there, right? So let's talk about something that I hear often, though I don't know if everyone understands what it is, but what is an offer in compromise?
That is for people that owe a lot of money that they have no ability to compromise. It is a very unique formula to determine whether you qualify and what amount your offer should be. You can't just barter with the IRS. You can't just say, oh, I owe 100,000, can I pay you 10? You have to look at your equity, your assets, your reasonable collection potential over the statute dates. It is not a simple process to go through.
Okay, so at that stage, I think if you owe a certain amount of money, I mean, what would be the difference between trying to handle and negotiate with the IRS on your own? So, we started off this interview talking about these pennies on the dollar advertisers so I'm looking at that's an option. People hear it all the time. But, if you have a certain amount of tax debt and you actually do owe it, at what point do you work with a professional? What type of professional do you recommend in dealing with the IRS?
Well, it depends on how bad your tax problem is. If you're going to do an offer and compromise, I do not recommend going it alone because it is a very complicated process and it usually takes about 2 years to go through. If it's just a simple installment agreement and you owe less than $50,000, you just call up the IRS and request a payment plan. You take your total liability, divide it by 72 months, and that would be your monthly payment.
Okay, so depending on the complexity and whether you're fighting what they're coming at you for whatever reason, that would be kind of your guidance. So, you know, if you do owe it, then it's under a certain threshold. You know, you can try to negotiate on your own. Otherwise, if it's more complex or a higher number, you definitely need professional help. It's kind of your guidance here.
Right. If you know you cannot make that monthly payment on an installment agreement and you need to look at a partial pay installment agreement, a currently not collectible status, or an offer and compromise, then you should really seek professional help to help you through that process.
Okay. So, like, let's just kind of close this up, and the overall feelings about dealing with the IRS and the budget cuts that they have now. How much more difficult is it for a taxpayer to reach somebody in the IRS or even for a professional representing you? Kind of give me some idea again on, you know, with the cuts in the IRS and the budget, what's happening there?
It's horrible. It's a nightmare. It takes forever to get through. They are even doing what we call a courtesy disconnect. They just say, oh, we're disconnecting on you because the wait time is too long, and they'll just disconnect you. Even for me, who supposedly has what we call a priority practitioner hotline, it's not so hot either. My average hold time can be an hour to 2 hours just to get transferred and wait all over again.
So yeah, I mean, we've read some stories about that, and kind of it gets a little political there, but that does make it even worse when you have an action on you, and then, you know, lo and behold, you can't even talk to anybody.
It's horrible. I mean, you would think if they're going to send out all these notices, you'd be able to get a hold of somebody to work something out with them, but it's nearly impossible. You can never get the same person twice. If you have to call back, you have to start all over again. It's a challenge.
Well, wonderful, Sharon. I appreciate all the insight you've given us today, and I hope this has helped you know, the normal average taxpayer, and maybe it'll take a little stress out of them if they do ever receive an IRS notice. But again, thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you, Lee.